Hello and welcome to another installment of the Oral History Project. It's part of the Keizer Points of Interest Committee's goings-ons, and I have with me today Dr. Jerry BOWERLY, who was Keizer's first dentist. And it all got started on a farm in Sheldon, Iowa, and first by way of Minnesota, came to Oregon when you were 15. So quite a change. What did you think of Oregon when you first got here?
Well, I'll tell you, we thought it was the Garden of Eden because we just came from the Dust Bowl and my father lost his farm and they had 4 kids and we didn't know what else to do. He was a farmer all of his life, and so we packed the kids in this 24 Dodge and we headed west and came to Eugene. And my goodness sake, we thought this was the Garden of Eden with all the nuts and the fruit and everything. It was terrific.
So how did Oregon come? I guess how did Oregon become the place that your family landed?
Well, back there in Minnesota, we had another family in our church that had the same situation, and they sent one of their 18-year-old sons out west. He went up to Washington, got a job in a sawmill, and he brought the money back and told them all about the Northwest and everything. And so they came out a year before we did, and they landed in Eugene. And so we went to their house and stayed until we could get settled a little bit there in Eugene. And so that's how we came. They told us all about it. They sent a lot of brochures to my mom, and she thought, oh boy, this is the place.
So tell me how you went to Mohawk High School?
Yes.
And so tell us kind of how you came from there to your dental practice, which you started in Portland, right?
Yes, well, my dad had he didn't know how to do anything but farm, but in Oregon, the farming was different than the open fields and the cattle and the fences and everything in Minnesota. And so he got a job as salesman, going from lumberjack towns to another town selling appliances, but then that didn't work. And when President Roosevelt set up the Rural Rehabilitation Project, where he took certain land and partitioned it into certain pieces of property. My dad got one of those up the Mohawk Valley, and it had been logged off years and years ago, but it never been cultivated. So it had big stumps in there, and so my dad and I had to get rid of those stumps. And we got a stump puller and a dynamite blaster, and we went and we worked out in the rain. We didn't mind the rain one bit because we hadn't felt rain for a long time. So anyway, we got in a farm there, and then I went to Mohawk High School, which was up the road about 5 miles. And then when I graduated, I went into the 3 Cs, and I was in the Civilian Conservation Corps for 13 months. And part of it was at Camp Belknap, and the other was in Camp Oak Ridge. And then I started at the university and went 2 years to the university first, and then went to dental school in Portland, which was the North Pacific College of Oregon School of Dentistry then. It was before the Oregon system of higher education took it over. So I got my degree in that in 44.
And so were you were in the military post during dental school then?
Yes, and when I was a senior, at that time the draft board was out after all the boys, and so all the graduates in dental school had to go into the Navy or the Army, or else you're going to be drafted. So I chose the Navy. So I started in my senior year, and they gave me a rating of midshipman. Then when I graduated, they made it the ensign. Then when I got my commission and orders, it was Lieutenant JG, and they ordered me to San Diego to the training center.
And so after that, you come back from San Diego, you'd set up a practice in Portland. You were in the Morgan building down there.
Yes, that's right.
And so what made you to, you'd never heard of Keizer, had you?
No, no, I can't. Well, this is quite the story. It was when I started my practice in the Morgan building, and I had a young lady that was a patient of mine, and I was telling her we were thinking about changing and not staying in Portland because we didn't want to raise our children there. So we were looking at opportunities in smaller communities. And so she said, well, she heard me talking, and she said, well, I have a cousin that's just graduated from medical school, and he's going to start a practice in Keizer. And I said, Keizer? Where's that? I never heard of it before. And so she told me, and it happened to be that he was another cousin of one of my classmates at Mohawk High. And so we knew the family. And so I called up Vern and we talked, and he said he'd like to have me. And so he arranged for me to be the dentist to come down there. It was a new clinic just being built, and it wasn't quite finished yet. Half of it was pharmacy and the other half was medical and dental.
So Vern is Dr. Vern Casterline, who was Keizer's first doctor then.
Yes.
And you were Keizer's first dentist.
Right.
So you found a receptive audience for you when you came, it sounds like.
We did. We shared a reception room, and then the couple that had the bakery in Keizer, the lady was putting out the first Keizer news there, and when she got the information, everything, she really pushed it, and she had write-ups and everything, and so everybody in Keizer knew about it. And from that time on, we just started in as soon as we got our equipment in there.
The first time you saw Keizer, what did you think? What compared to being in a pretty, it was even then a very big city in Portland.
Well, there was just the school and a gas station and a grocery store and a hardware store. And, but there were walnut trees all around everything, and there was some new houses there. And so we thought, well, this is a good place to start. It was the bedroom community of Salem. And so we thought, well, this will be a good place, and it really was.
What was it that, what was the positive, what did you feel that, when you got here, it sounds, obviously you liked it. You've been here some 60 years now.
Yeah.
You mentioned the small town feel of it. What were some of the other draws to you?
Well, the people were just really, really friendly, and it was close to Salem. It was close there, and it was close to the country. You could get out in the country. We're really in the country, and the people were friendly, and we started looking at houses, and there was a new house on Will Avenue just being built, and the contractor was very nice, and so we ended up buying a house there. But we felt that it was mainly the people, and we knew that it was going to grow because there was the development of the Mandarin Gardens was a special place for a little bit better homes, and we knew that it was going to progress.
So are you still in the home then, or how long did you live in the home on Linda?
50 years, and 2 years ago we moved into Avamere Court over just off of River Road on Clackamas there. Mm-hmm.
So what was your relationship, your working relationship like with Dr. Casterline?
Well, it was really very good, very good. We've just been friends all these years together. And we were there 10 years together, and then he went into another office, and I went into another dental office that was being built. But we had a very good relationship, we really did. And we were really good friends, and we were good friends with his first wife, and he's still a really good friend of ours, and we think a lot of Vern. Yeah, he's really a good guy.
So, you were in the profession quite a long time. What were some of and I think you and I had discussed this earlier. Can you tell us about some of the how your profession evolved and changed between when you started and when you retired?
Yeah. Well, when I was in dental school, they didn't have any place for the patient to spit. They didn't have an aspirator or anything like that. They had a spittoon right by the chair that was just like the spittoon they had in the saloons. And our equipment was only had the belt-driven handpiece, and well, it was really antiquated. And it's in the archives now, I'll tell you. And now, of course, my goodness, it's far, far, far advanced, and it's all technical, and it's computerized, and it's night and day plus.
Do you feel like you could walk into an exam room and do what you did?
Never, no, never.
So what piece of technology or what medical discovery sort of during your career really changed the dental industry?
Well, it was the turbine handpiece, the handpiece that ran. First of all, I had one that ran with water handpiece, and that was a big advantage over the belt-driven handpiece. And then now they have air handpieces, and they go high speed, really high speed, and those are one of the biggest advantages that I see.
So when you were, what are the things that you and your family did for fun when you had off time in this area?
Well, we used to go to the Y every Friday night, the whole family, and go and have a time at the Y, a good time swimming, and then we'd go out and we'd go to Burger King or someplace and have a sandwich and so forth. And we played a lot of games at home, and whenever we got a chance, we'd go to the beach, and we loved to go to the beach and take the kids. And then when they were old enough to start skiing, we got into skiing, and that was one of the favorite pastimes we had. Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the major events in Keizer that you remember taking place when you were, during your practice or post-retirement?
Well, one of the biggest things, it wasn't a couple of years ago, around 4 or 5 years ago, I guess it was longer, when they moved the old Keizer school. I guess that was longer than 5 years. Anyway, when they saved the old Keizer school and moved it to where it is now, and then restored it to where it is now. That's one of the big things that happened in Keizer, and then the way that the government has grown and advanced, and how it's become a very, very good government, and it's been a very good city, and the streets and the sidewalks and all are being taken care of, and it's a big change from what it was in those days. We just didn't have those things.
So in your mind, you went from watching the Keizer School being, the focal point of the community,
Mm-hmm.
sort of went, the school was, eventually closed and people didn't know quite what to do with the building.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us why you thought it was important that the building be saved? Were you involved in the committee to?
Oh, yes, I'm still on the board, the Keizer Heritage Community Center Board. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any particular memories of the building when it was actually a school?
Well, I remember going there and going up those steps, and having the classrooms upstairs, and that was the same thing as when we were back in Minnesota. I had to go upstairs to go to school in my freshman year, and it was it had so many windows in it. That's what that I noticed. And still today, I think it's one of the very pluses of that building is the windows. It has a lot of light in there, and I noticed that. And the kids went to school there, and they had a good playground outside, and they got along really well.
So what was in your mind, you said you're on the Heritage Board even now. So what do you think the community has gained from saving that building?
Well, it's kind of a show place. In the first place, there's the Art Association has a gallery up there and a studio for classes. It's beautiful. And there's a Chamber of Commerce, I have an office there, and there's a museum and a small library. We sit at the museum every week, or month or so. And there's the Young Life has a room there, and then upstairs is a big sort of a conference room with a modern, complete kitchen, and there's weddings that are set up and anniversaries, and it's rented out, and it's self-sustaining, and it's a place where people can congregate, and we have children coming in there and going to the library and going through the library and the museum, and it's a small scale, but it's very nice.
So going back to your practice, was it common for dentists to make house calls like like physicians, like a general practitioner may have?
No, not unless it would be a real emergency or something like that, an accident or something like that, But normally we didn't go to house calls.
So how would you handle like a dental emergency then?
Well, you'd take what you could of the instruments they thought, whether, and it would be, of course, there'd probably be some medic that would be called to control the hemorrhage and that sort of thing. And, but if it's a fractured tooth, you just have to try to calm the patient down, and then when you could get in to stabilize it some way so that it wouldn't be sore to touch or move. And so it's we didn't have too many of those.
So when Keizer, there was discussion of incorporation for quite a long time. When the deal actually was going down, what were your thoughts at the time?
Well, I was all in favor of incorporating it. So I felt that it was going to be a city sometime because it was growing so rapidly, and I thought it was a good thing. And Salem was, we had to kind of listen to Salem, and we were part of Salem. Well, we were actually, I guess not in the city limits, but anyway, I thought it was a good idea, as most of the other members of the community, I think, did too.
Well, you had mentioned earlier that one of the things that has been interesting to watch over the years is how the government's grown. And what was it? Were you much involved in the early days in terms of the government? Were you more a informed spectator? How would you describe your role in those days?
Yes, I wasn't really involved in the formation of the government too much, no. But, like you say, I was an informed person that was very interested in seeing the government progress like it did.
What was the single biggest maybe change or evolution that you think had the biggest impact on Keizer in the time that you've been here?
Well, I think that the growth of the populace, it's the growing of the city and all the construction and the building and going on, and the increase in the population, and then the way the government has progressed. And now we have even this building here, which is a beautiful building, and it's an evidence of real progress and some real effort and thinking behind it.
Are there any thoughts on Keizer or the community in general that you want to leave us with? We'll wrap it up here.
Well, I would say that if anybody wants to come to Keizer, why they would be welcome, and I don't think that they would be disappointed. And there's many advantages. It has very good schools, and it has good roads, and it's access to the freeway and into Salem, and it's it doesn't take you long to get out in the country, and I think it's a good place to live. We're real happy that we live there, and we're very proud of our city.
Very nice. You should take up real estate. That sounded really good. Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching us. I want to thank the Keizer Points of Interest Committee for putting this together, and most importantly, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.